You're listening to Let's Talk About Fatherlessness with host Sean Teis, where we talk about leading fatherless families to the Heavenly Father.
Hey, my name is Sean Teis, and this is the Let's Talk About Fatherlessness show. I'm excited to have our guest Chad Wallen with us today. Chad, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Chad Wallen. I actually live in just outside of Fort Worth, Texas. Originally born and raised in Oregon. And I run a nonprofit ministry called Advance Camp, where we mentor and teach fatherless young men between the ages of 6th and 12th grade, tangible trade and life skills that we feel like a dad should have if he was still around in their life.
That's great. Yeah, and we appreciate your ministry. You're actually on location right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Just landed in Oregon to get some wheels turning here again. So.
Okay, what are you doing up there? Why don't you tell us? So you have Oregon, you just launched, you're about to launch Tennessee, you have Florida and Texas, right?
Yeah, so Texas is what I call our national headquarters. So we have Texas just outside of Fort Worth. We launched Florida outside of Fort Lauderdale in September of last year. And then Oregon, we launched July of last year. And then about 2 weeks ago, we just launched in Tennessee, just south of Nashville. So we're spreading, trying to impact as many fatherless as we can across the nation. So yeah, we just launched that one.
Well, I appreciate what you do because I see pictures and stuff you guys post, and for me, I look at it. I grew up fatherless, and I didn't have a lot of people to show me how to do things. So even as an adult male, I don't know how to fix a car. I don't know how to do a lot of stuff, fixing a lot of stuff or making a lot of stuff, and you're teaching kids skills that, how to work on stuff, how to fix stuff. And that's why one of the reason I appreciate your ministry is because you're giving them life skill. You're giving them things that they can do. And so tell us more about that, what you guys do.
Sure. So the best way I always explain it is we literally will do anything that we feel like a dad should have taught. So that can be everything from, we just started doing RC cars just recently, just started doing 3D printing, but a lot of our meat and potatoes is vocational skills. So general contracting, plumbing, framing, electrical, sheetrock. We do automotive, small engine repair, lawn care. Man, I tell you, moms come up to me and they're like, I really want 3 things taught to my son that I don't feel like I can do. And that's lawn care. They're like, I need my son to learn how to run a mower, a weed eater, a chainsaw. I want him to learn how to work on cars. So we do some basic stuff. And then we do dig a little deep into some of the camps as guys continue to come to camp. We'll step it up the next level at the next camp. And then the last one is the talk. Moms are like, I don't know how to have the talk with a young man. Like, I know how to have a talk with the daughter. And when I say the talk, I mean the sex talk. And so they put that on us as well. That hasn't happened yet, but that is on our docket coming soon. But really our big focus is teaching them these trades and these skills for 2 reasons. One is these guys may say, I want a hobby. I want to be able to ride my bike and then work on my own bike. Or, you know what? I just love detailing cars. It's fun for me to see the before and the after. I personally love to mow the lawn because it's my time with the Lord. Like, I put on my ear pods or I do nothing, and it is time of prayer while I'm mowing. And so that could be a hobby, but we also bring in guys to teach these trades that this is what they do for a living. So it opens up the opportunities for a career path. And so that's one of the things that's really big about what we're doing now. And I'm building all of our curriculum and the platform for what I call Pathways Partners. So if a young man comes to our general contracting campus, says, man, automotive or that electrical stuff or that plumbing stuff was awesome. Like, that was my thing. We have a person to connect them to get the proper training, internship, discipleship, whatever that's going to look like as a paid employee, to put them on a path of a career versus the statistics that they're set up to be in. They look at, the numbers can vary, but men that are incarcerated, 75% of men in the prison system came from fatherless homes. I've heard 85%. I think it can depend on state, but I don't want them to end up at that avenue of life and that path of life. And so if we can teach them a trade skill, build up confidence, share the love of Jesus, we can put them on a different path. And that's really why we do the trade and and vocational skills is to hopefully open their eyes to a path other than the opposite, the alternative.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I said I can't fix cars and stuff. But I learned from my grandfather how to cut the grass. I learned from my mentor, even to this day, Jim. He taught me. I worked for him for his company, an air machine vacuum company, car washes. Learned all kinds of stuff from him on that. Sure, I can't. I'm not one that's going to go and like build a house or something, but I've learned things from my mentors. And I think what you're doing for these guys is the same thing that happened when I was growing up. Is you're teaching them confidence, knowing that they can work on things. Like I could have fixed an air machine, it's pretty much. I mean, I could, I learned how to change the oil and the work vans and the cars that they had. And so that taught me confidence, that taught me if I can do this, then I probably could do that. And so I think that's what you're doing is awesome. And the fact that they can have a hobby too. Like my mentor took me shooting skeet whenever I was in high school. I never shot a shotgun before. Yeah. We went out, and somehow it got in his head. I don't know why he thought of it. And we were working the one day, and he pulled off to this place. We went to this wing and shoot club, and I never even heard of a wing and shoot club. I didn't know what that was. And we went, and he had the shotguns. We didn't have ear protection. I mean, that's how unprepared we were to do this. And we went out we went out and did the course, and we're just blowing away. I'm unloading the gun. You're not even supposed to do that at these clubs, but I'm unloading the gun. And we're just having fun. We're laughing, having a fun time. Well, that became a hobby of ours. And so we started shooting skeet. He had a bunch of ground in Pennsylvania, and up on the hill that they had, they put a automatic thrower. And so we would go out there after work in the summer times and just go shoot skeet for a couple hours or an hour. And that was our hobby. So I get what you're saying. I mean, because that gave me confidence, because I got to the point with shooting skeet that I could hit 24 out of 25.
That's
but
awesome.
if it wasn't for that mentor, like you're being for these guys, I would never have known that. I would never have had that ability. And so I appreciate what you're doing in that sense, because that's amazing. Have you seen any results from kids where their confidence level has gone way up?
Oh yeah. So I actually had a mom. We did our lawn care one, and it's so funny because this mom ahead of time, she goes, I don't get it. Like, I've asked them to help on our land. They have like 3 to 5 acres, in Texas. And she goes, I don't get it. I've asked him to help me with cleaning up the lawn or cleaning up our land or cleaning up our forest. We need to trim trees, and he won't help. He just won't do it. He kind of kicks rocks. He'll do something else. Well, he came to our lawn care camp, and we did chainsaws, electric trimmers, weed eaters, walk behind mowers, and riding mowers. Nice. But one of the things we gave him is a chainsaw, which this thing is massive. It's a Husqvarna Rancher 435. It's huge. It's big for me. And this young man was like 12 years old. And so he's running the chainsaw, and we had a guy, one of our mentors, that stood beside him and showed him how to do this, how to properly run a chainsaw, how to do it safely. And no joke, the next morning, it was probably about 10 in the morning, I get a text message from his mom with him starting the chainsaw on the property. And she goes, I don't know what you did with my son yesterday, but I've been asking him for 3 years to help me on my property, and he has never done it. And he's out there starting the chainsaw to help clean up.
That's awesome.
And he didn't have somebody to sit behind. He didn't want to tell anybody, admit to anybody he didn't know how to do it. And then as soon as he had a man step in and say, you know what, you can do this. Like, we're going to go out there. We're going to do this. It's not an optional thing. I'm going to teach you how to run a chainsaw. This is part of the activity today. It breaks down those walls and creates that confidence that they are capable of doing something like that.
That's so cool. That's why I think it's so invaluable what you're doing for these young men. And I'm so thankful for your ministry. Advanced Camp, Texas, Oregon, Florida, Tennessee's coming. Tennessee's coming soon, right?
Already started 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Oh, nice. Yep. Okay. I don't know how I missed that.
All good.
We stay in touch as much as we can, but that's awesome. Good for you guys. Now, diving into the area of fatherlessness, we're talking about fatherlessness. What are some things that you, from your own story or from the experience that you have, anything you want to share about fatherlessness? We can kind of dive into a conversation about that.
A little bit about my background. My dad was actually lived in the home. My parents are still married. They're actually about to celebrate their 50th anniversary. But my dad wasn't around. He worked for a lumber yard. And so he worked from about 3 o'clock in the afternoon until about 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And so he wasn't home when we got home from school. He wasn't awake when we got up to go to school. So he wasn't around at all during the week. He was around on the weekends as long as it wasn't hunting and fishing season. And so he's just what I classify as a disengaged father. He's never been a bad dude. Like, I honestly, I couldn't even tell you a time I've heard him cuss. Like, he is a good guy. But he wasn't able to speak into my life the way I needed it. So that's what pushed me into wanting to mentor young men and speak into the fatherless side of it, because I know if it affected me having a dad in the home that was disengaged, what does it look like to not have a dad in the home at all? And so, I've seen the mass majority of what I hear from single moms without having a dad in the home. There's anger problems in the home. They tell me all the time, "Hey, are you sure you want to take on my son? He's got some anger issues." I'm like, honestly, we don't really see him at camp. There's men speaking in their lives. I also have a zero tolerance for it. I fostered for 8 years. Like, I've seen some crazy stuff in our home from foster care. I just don't have a tolerance for that stuff. And I let them know it ahead of time of what the expectations are. And it's funny when they're getting the fatherless are getting expectations set in front of them by a male. It is received differently than it is from a female. And it's because there's a transition in their lives around 10 or 11 that the disciplinary and the friend swap. And when the dad's not there to swap those roles and speak in their lives, that's when you start having the behavioral issues. You start having the suicide issues. You start seeing them find identity into other pieces. And so we see some crazy identities with the fatherless as well of, who's your role model? Oh, my dad's not around, so my neighbor is. Oh, cool. How's he your role model? Oh, he's a dealer. So your role model's a dealer. Yeah, I'm going to grow up just like him. He makes good money and he's got really cool jewelry. So that's what you find valuable. And it's because they don't have a man as a role model sitting in front of them, showing them what a man looks like, showing them what a leader looks like, showing them what a father looks like. And they're just like, I'll grab identity from wherever I can. If they aren't grabbing negative identity from their own father, they're grabbing a negative identity, not all the time, but most of the time, from surrounding things. So that's what I see the most of, is breaking identity roles and, just trying to work through behavioral stuff, anger issues, those pieces.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And the thing is, and I just interviewed a pastor too, and what you mentioned, how with your story, your dad wasn't there, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. He was physically present, but maybe didn't nurture you physically like even you needed to be taught different things. And I'd said in that podcast with this pastor, I said that, I think it's harder, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it's very similar. But to have a dad in your house that doesn't spend time with you than it is to not have one at all, because you're constantly reminded that he's not there. But I think it's probably very, it's pretty equal. And it's hard to even to measure the difference, honestly. But I think what having a dad in your house, so let's talk about that more. Like, you had a dad, but that's still in many areas, that's fatherlessness. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a range of fatherlessness is a range, and that's on, say, on the far right. The far left is never met your dad. I have moms that tell me that their dad was a sperm donor, and that's literally how they're referred to. Whereas my dad was there, and he did. Man, there's stuff we teach at camp that my dad taught me growing up, that I'm very grateful that he was there and he taught me how to do. But with that being said, I didn't hear from my dad until I was 19 years old. I can tell you exactly where I was, what I was doing, the time of day, the temperature outside, when my dad told me for the first time that he loved me. And he didn't tell me, and I was 19 years old. And then he didn't tell me until I was 39 years old. So 20 years later, that he was proud of me.
Wow.
When I launched advanced camp in Texas. So my family and I moved to Texas. I can't remember if it's on the phone or if in text message. I think it was over the phone, but told him I launched advanced camp. We'd been running for about 3 or 4 months, and he goes, "Man, I'm really proud of you." I'm like,
wow, that's awesome.
I don't even know how to digest that, right? And it still still brings me to tears, because I'm like, that's all I wanted growing up, and it was there in front of me all the time and never done.
Yeah, that validation of, hey, you're a man. I believe in you. I care about you. He knew he cared about you, but that I believe in you. Hey, I'm going to hand this off to you. You're a man. It's like we go to a similar event every year and they talk about the blessing at it, right? Give that father blessing. They've given that blessing to you, and that's what you were looking for. And so at 39, do you feel like you received that blessing at that moment from him then, just in that way? Did that help? I mean, how did that help you?
I'd say it helped, but then it's like, okay, where's the rest of it? Like, you stopped it. I'm proud of you. But like, it was just that. Okay, what's next? Because that's 39 years of no affirmation, So just, it's kind of crazy. I have this conversation with my mom often of my dad and the lack of speaking into that. And she goes, man, it really hurts my heart when you tell me about how you feel like your dad's fallen short. I was like, okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. That is how it happened. And she goes, I know, but it hurts my heart that was the experience you were raised in. I said, but if I was raised in the right situation, would I have the motivation would I have the drive to make the impact on the fatherless that I do now if I didn't have that nudge or the lack thereof of motivation or dad motivating me? Man, it's a blessing that my dad didn't do it, because now it can impact so many other young men's lives in a positive way because how I was raised. So it's kind of one of those things, God can work all things together for the good. And that was 39 years of rough, but I can change it to an eternity for others.
Amen. That's good. And that's the thing. You're taking it and trying to break the cycle in your own life of changing things. And I understand that with my situation, I'm trying to break the cycle myself. And that's what we need we need a generation of cycle breakers saying, hey, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to make things different. It's like you see these old pictures of these dads that in the family picture, the whole family smiling and the dad's like, you know what I'm saying? I hate pictures like that. It's like, you smile, man. Like, it drives me nuts when I see pictures like that, because there's this generation of, they didn't say that I love you. And not all of them are like that. Some of them just didn't like to smile. But there's a lot of these people that they didn't have that validation from their dad. Yeah. And so I appreciate you sharing that. Now, how do you take that and, you teach the kids we work with skills. What else do you teach them, like emotionally and spiritually and stuff?
Well, at lunchtime we do what I call the nugget. It's just a nugget out of scripture. We share that ties into where the trade is. We actually did motorcycle tuning, repair, and sales at a local Harley dealership in Fort Worth this last Saturday. I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm going to teach out of scripture for this camp. Like, how do can you tie Moses into a motorcycle? Like, how do you do that? And so I guess somehow I could have, but I really pushed into the identity of what is a man. And so we sat down and talked, because this motorcycle shop serves the banditos. Like, the banditos come in and buy motorcycles from. So I was like, okay, what's a man? Like, what does a man look like? What does a behavior look like that is biblically sound? How does God say a man is designed? And so we've really pushed into that on this camp. And so we do biblical stuff. We do identity stuff. We don't call our campers boys or kids. We call them young men. So that's some mental stuff that we work through. You act like a young man because you are a young man. You act like a boy or a kid. We have a conversation of, do you want to still come to camp? Because we don't have boys or kids at camp. We have young men at camp. So it puts them to a level of accountability for their behavior. We really push into identity. I brought it up earlier, but that's our number one battle with these young men is identity. We really push into what does God say you are? Who does God say you are? Versus what your dad said you are, or your dad created your identity by his actions and his behaviors. So we really push heavy into identity. So those are some of the outside trade nuggets. I have people ask me all the time, do we teach them how to shake hands and then make eye contact? I said, no, we don't. And they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, why would you not why would you not speak into these young men's lives of how to shake a hand? And my response is always, we don't teach that. We get caught doing that. And so it's caught, not taught. These young men come to camp, and every time they come to camp, they are met eye to eye with a handshake, and they watch that, and they see how we act and how we do it, and they pick up those skills based off of watching us act as godly males. What does a godly man look like? And they replicate it.
Wow, that's really good. So you guys are just teaching them all kinds of stuff, and I appreciate that, what you're doing with that. Have you have any stories of fatherlessness that you've seen in your group? Just, and I know you have to be careful what you share, but anything where you're just to talk more about the issue of fatherlessness. Is there anything that you're like, here, this is an incredible story, or this is something I've seen? I mean, you've been doing this for a while. Is there any major
I'll give you
wins?
two sides.
Other wins.
Yeah.
You've already shared some, but
sure, I'm going to share a loss, and I'll share a win.
okay,
so I have a camper. I had a camper that came to our camp, and he came 2 or 3, 4 times. He was like one of my favorite campers. He was just, if I had favorites, I don't, but if I did, he would be one of them. And awesome young man. Well, his mom started telling me he's not coming to camp this camp. He's been very disrespectful to me. And so we're working with respect before he can come back to camp. I said, no, you got to send him to camp. Let us speak that into him. Part of being a godly man is respecting women. I think that's lost in our society right now is, they say, I want to demasculate men. No, you want men to be masculine in the right way. And that is respecting women and treating them with respect. And so she's like, he's not being respectful. He's arguing with me all the time. So he's not coming to camp until he gets his act straight. And I was like, no, you got to send him to camp. She wouldn't do it. She wouldn't listen. He ended up incarcerated. And his mom didn't tell me why directly. She said that there was a confrontation or something with his girlfriend, and he went to jail and she didn't. And she said he is following literally after his dad's footsteps. So his dad's been out of his life for years, like years. And he is still replicating the behavior of his father because he has no men stepping in to put him on the right track and speaking into his life to put him on the right track. So that's a loss for us. So anytime a mom brings up, oh, he's not coming to camp, he's bad behavior, I said, no, you send him to camp and we'll straighten up that behavior. We'll teach them what correct behavior is. So that's
like when I was a youth pastor. When I was a youth pastor, they people would say, oh, they're not allowed to come to church, they're grounded. And it's like, really? Like, coming to church is going to help them, hopefully, hopefully it'll help them learn something from the Bible, learn some principles, be around Christians. Definitely, you don't want to take kids away from things that's going to help them mature in their Christian faith as a person. So thanks for sharing that.
So on the positive side, one of the statistics of fatherlessness is high school dropout. It's 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. And we had a mom reach out to me. I was actually vacationing in Tennessee. She calls crying, super upset. I said, I'm sorry. I'm at dinner for my birthday with my wife. I'll let you talk to one of the other mentors. Here you go. It comes back to me that he was dropping out of high school to become a YouTube star. He didn't have a YouTube channel, but he was going to drop out of high school to become a YouTube star. I said, okay, I understand you're scared. I get it. Don't let him miss a camp. And she goes, okay. And so we spoke into his life. We ended up becoming the men in his life. And about 6-7 months later, I got an invite to his high school graduation. That he didn't just get a GED. He stayed in, focused, and got his diploma. But he was that close to dropping out because he just didn't have men speaking into his life and letting him know the importance of follow through. So one of the things about being a man is being responsible for your behaviors. And so being able to speak that into him kept him on the right track and graduate high school.
That's awesome, man. I love that.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up now. Anything you want to share that you're thinking, hey, I should have shared this, or anything else about fatherlessness that you want to talk about?
Man,
with your experience with it, or anything you've seen, trends, or
Man, yeah, if we can, the thing I see, my biggest heart towards the fatherless is to be preventative. Get in with these young men, get in with these young ladies, speak into their lives, put them on a trajectory other than the statistic, and help them create a positive path in their life before they choose a bad path. So that's like my one nugget I always take away is what am I speaking in these young men's lives to prevent them from going into incarceration or high school dropout or suicide or drugs. What, that's my nugget to leave you with is what can you do before? What can you speak in their lives before they take the wrong path?
Now, with your volunteers, is that what you teach them? What do you teach them when you say, hey, you're going to be working with fatherless kids? Is that what you say? Like, hey, you speak truth into their life, be available to them. Is that kind of how you guys, some of the stuff you teach them or?
No, I tell them they need to do 3 things every camp for these young men. They affirm their behaviors. They speak confidence into them, build up their confidence, and share the love of Jesus. That's their job at camp. They awesome. Work on projects beside them, but as they're working on a project, they're affirming their behaviors, right? They're affirming their abilities, but they're in the process that is building confidence. And then, of course, foundationally, you got to teach them the love of Christ because they don't know the love of a father. They know the abandonment of a father.
And that's the thing. They're around so many negative influences. Public school, a lot of times, is mostly negative. The social media, they're on TikTok, Instagram, whatever they're on, a lot of negative stuff, immoral things, teaching negative things, and teaching worldliness, teaching things against anti-God. They're anti-God things. And so, you're bringing them there. And so people that are listening that are saying, hey, we don't have an advanced camp here. Or we don't have, you can get started just working with the kids down the street, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Working with those kind of kids and be part of their life and speaking truth into them, telling them about Jesus, giving them affirmation and just helping them know that, hey, you don't have to become a statistic like that one kid you work with. You don't have to become like your dad. You don't have to go down and go to prison just like your dad did. You can do something different. And so I appreciate what you do. I thank you for your work and excited about how God's growing your ministry.
Yeah, I am too, man. It's pretty awesome to sit here and watch what God's doing for sure.
But thank you for being on with us, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It's great to talk to you.
To learn more about how you can get involved in fatherless family ministry, visit lifeactors.org where you can find some free resources. You can find our books that we have. You can find even the program that we have to help you start a single mom ministry within your ministry or within your church. We can all work together to lead fatherless families to the Heavenly Father.